Good afternoon, writers, and welcome to a spare table where I'm going to talk you through what goes in my writing bag. Over the last few weeks I've done a couple of videos in which I have gone out to look at different coffee shops in a town that I've been visiting and working in. And what I realise is it's actually a very automatic behaviour for me to have a bag ready to go so that I can leave the hotel or walk out of my house here, sit myself in a coffee shop where I'm relaxed and happy and I'm comfortable to work on a project. And this is the bag that I use. It's by a company called Knomo, K-N-O-M-O. They have a range of bags available. I'll put a link in the description. But this one is in a lovely olive green. It's in a scratch-resistant nylon fabric. It has a pocket at the back which has a beautiful soft quilted effect, so that's very good for putting my laptops in, and you'll find it useful for your carry-on luggage if you're travelling on the aircraft. I find I can use it, because of these straps, I can use it very well as a simple shoulder bag, or I can lengthen the straps, and it's a very comfy and quite secure messenger bag that I can slip over my shoulders. Let's have a look at what's in the bag itself. In here I keep a plastic wallet which has my current manuscript on it. So on this one I have been doing a pen and ink edit, and you can see my amendments here, and those are from a couple of days ago, and I can transfer those onto my iPad. Speaking of which, here is my iPad. I keep this in a separate pocket so as to protect it even further. Ironically, this was a PE bag or school kit bag when I was probably 4 years old, so I was preschooler, and my mum even stitched my initials on there, you can see those. But I keep in here my Logitech keyboard and my iPad, for which I purchased an extra foldable cover which serves as a stand. And I do a lot of work when I leave the house on my iPad. I tend not to take my MacBook Air out of the house because it syncs naturally with the iPad and the Logitech keyboard via Bluetooth and via Google Sync, so that works very well. And that's my iPad. That's the heaviest item that I carry when I leave the house to go out to a coffee shop. Here I'm carrying a simple unlined A4 notepad. I got this from my local office world. And in here, this week I've been working on a fresh manuscript. I'm jotting down fresh ideas, doing a handwritten draft of my notes, and then adding those to my iPad, always the following day. Speaking of those notes, I'm a big fan of Moleskine notebooks, and I have these in multiple colours, but the yellow ones I tend to use for my writing work and my writing notes. So if I'm on a bus or I'm sitting in a coffee shop and an idea occurs to me while I'm not actually engaged in the manuscript, I will jot those ideas down in my notebook and add them to here, so I don't then have to think about it. Yesterday, for example, I added my current word count on the project that is keeping me occupied at the moment. So you can see here that on Wednesday I wrote 1,452 words when I went to a coffee shop, and then Thursday 1,028 words when I went to another one nearby. But my Moleskine is very useful. It has a pocket at the back, so in the rear pocket I've got some cash for coffee or cakes when I'm out and about. And in the front, if you're not a regular Moleskine user, by all means consider using Moleskines. They are superbly durable. That's what I like about them. It's the binding that makes them stand out, I think, from a lot of other would-be impersonators who make very good books. But I'm loyal to this brand, and I've found it very useful over probably 20 years to use this. In the front, there's a little section that says if you find this book, you can return it to the owner. So I always have my email address in there and a little reward. This one I've got a £20 or $20 reward and my email address so that it can come back to me. Now, I've lost one once and it did come back to me 2 weeks later, and I was so amazed and thrilled that this had worked for me. So that's my Moleskine notebook. And again, I'll put some notes in the guidance section. I keep a little leather wallet, zip-up wallet for some cash, for food and public transport, and also another wallet which has my library card and my driving license. I do often write, certainly one day a week, in a public library, and having access to a library space I find tremendous. Given the weather we've all been experiencing recently, I carry a pair of sunglasses in my Nomo bag. And here's something that you might already use, but if not, I can certainly recommend it if you are drafting fiction. It's called a Fabula card deck. And it's a superb pack of cards which allow you can spread the cards out on a table in your coffee shop or in a library or at home if you're writing from home. And it's a framework for developing a fictional story. It has asset cards, character cards, scene cards that you can take out. I'll just take these out of the box and show them to you. So here are some of the different cards. You can see if I fan those out to you, there are three colours, blue, black and orange. And what those allow you to do is the orange cards allow you to work through the journey of your main protagonist, or traditionally the hero in your story. These blue cards are called asset cards, and you can, using these, develop strong elements of the story which will allow you to see the route to take as your story develops. And then finally, these black cards are referred to or called reader's steps. And if you match the story that you write to those cards, what you'll find is that you will see a natural development of a good moving story with all the aspects that a reader is subconsciously expecting and hoping to find. But by matching your manuscript against the card deck, you'll find tremendous congruency in the way your story develops. What else have we got in this amazing bag? For public transport and crowded spaces, I'm still using a face mask, as much as anything on the metro system, to keep the grime out of my nose and mouth. Something else I use, this is a bag from Anchor. I use a recharging battery or block. I'll charge this the night before if I'm going to be out all day or for 3 or 4 hours. And with that comes a useful utility bag, which I've tended to adapt and to use to carry a spare charging cable for my phone, which I use a Samsung S8. This is a charging cable for my iPad. And I also use, when I'm out and about in coffee shops, a set of earphones. Now, interestingly, I tend not to listen to music in coffee shops because there is enough background noise and white ambient noise for you to be productive as a writer in such an environment. But occasionally, if I don't want to be disturbed, or if I think there's a likelihood that I'm in a busy area of a coffee shop, I'll pop these in, not necessarily with music from Spotify or whatever I want to listen to, but just so that I'm giving out the message, I'd rather not be disturbed, I'm busy and I'm focusing on a writing project. Use something like that as a little obstruction or a distancing tool when you're sitting in a coffee shop and you want to be able to focus completely on the task in hand. I've still got plenty in the bag because it is a phenomenal bag. I'm quite short-sighted, so when I'm writing, I will use a pair of glasses. And I'll also use those glasses when I am reading. This is my current read. It's called Bound for Glory by Woody Guthrie. Woody Guthrie is basically a folk hero of the American Midwest, but also of the American acoustic music movement. This book, I'm just going to read it. On the back cover it said, Bound for Glory is the funny, cynical and earthy autobiography of Woody Guthrie, the father of American folk music. He tells of his childhood running wild in an Oklahoma oil boom town, the tragedies that struck his family, and of his life on the open road during the Great Depression. Hell-raising and brawling in boxcars, all the while singing to raise a dime for his next meal. But above all, this is a song for an America Woody saw from the lonesome highway as he travelled from one end of the country to the other with a guitar in hand and the songs that made him a legend drifting out over the Dust Bowl. It really is a superb book. Woody Guthrie, Bound for Glory. I was fortunate enough to buy this in Blackwell's in Oxford, and actually from an American bookseller who works there and is a fountain of knowledge on American cult literature. And I've been enjoying it and reading it. It's a fabulous book. One of the reasons it touched a nerve with me and why I had to buy it was in the early 1980s, I worked on a summer camp in the Catskill Mountains of New York. It was a place called Camp Olympus, and it was a place where on 2 occasions, each for a month, groups of teenage Americans from New York City would come up to the Catskill Mountains and have a month with us on their summer camp. I worked as a campcraft instructor with a friend who ran boating around the lake, and we would look after these kids at night in the camps, and we had an amazing time. But after the camp, I, with some friends, decided to hitchhike from New York, upstate New York, over to San Francisco, where my parents had some very good friends, and we all agreed to turn up at their house. There were actually 12 of us, and 11 of us made it to San Francisco. Some hired cars, some went on public transport like the overland train, which has 2 decks and an observation car. I set off hitchhiking down the Appalachian Mountains with another counsellor from the same camp, and at the end of the Appalachians we decided to go our different ways, but I then continued across the states on my journey, and on several occasions I jumped into freight trains and rode freight trains across whole states at a time. On the way back from San Francisco to New York a month later, I actually jumped a freight train from Denver that took 3 days, all the way to Chicago mainline station, where I climbed out from under a freight car, much to the astonishment of the besuited and well-heeled commuters in Chicago Central. But that's why I'm reading Woody Guthrie. It takes me straight back to my teenage years hitchhiking and riding freight trains across the United States. But there is more. What else have we got? We're writers and we need writing implements. Sometimes we use digital things, don't we, like an iPad or a MacBook. But pen and paper are the tools of my trade. At the moment I'm using this quite a lot to write. This is a Kaweco Sport fountain pen. I bought it in a shop in Leeds in Yorkshire called Colours May Vary, which is an amazing place. But what's great about this pen is it is literally about 10 centimetres long when it's capped, and it has a screw down cap, and then it's about 13 centimetres long as the writing instrument that you'll use in your hand. It can be used with an ink bladder, which I sometimes use. On this occasion, I've got a simple universal cartridge inside it, but it's a super pen. I really like it, and I'm using it on a fine nib, and it's delivering some beautiful work for me as I write on a fiction manuscript at the moment. My other standard pens when I leave the house are these 4. When I'm writing very fast and I'm trying not to edit my ideas as they hit the paper, I'm using the unlined white pages, and I use my Mitsubishi Pencil Company Fine Line PN. This one is on a .03 nib, and that works really well for me. What I love about these is the strength of pressure that you can use on the nib on paper. So that works really well for me. The other one here that I really enjoy is the Faber-Castell brush pen. When I'm doing a word count, I will just block off the words that I've written in units of 100. So, for example, yesterday when I did those 1,200 words in the coffee shop, 12 occasions I split this by 100, so that I don't have to keep recounting at the end of a writing session. The V-Ball pen here is superb. These are very strong nibs, and by comparison with the Mitsubishi, these are almost like little steel needles, and superb for writing on most types of paper. Finally, this one is called this is a Schneider pen. I'm sure you recognise it. It's a Slide Touch XB, very easy to get online. In fact, I'll put another link to these because I buy these in boxes of 10 and I find them incredibly useful. It's probably the most borrowed pen that I have. These disappear from my pen pot at a faster rate than anything else because they are very obviously good professional pens, but they're so comfortable to write with. That's it. That's the total of my go bag. Again, it's from Nomo, and one of the things to recommend about this is that every Nomo bag has its own unique identifying number written inside. That in and of itself creates a kind of club feeling about owning Nomo bags. And often when I'm travelling through London on the Underground system or on a bus, I will spot other Nomo bags, and it's nice to feel part of that same sort of club. But that's my writing bag. That's what's in my bag. And I'm off to the coffee shop fairly soon for another 2-hour session with a decent coffee. I've still got one to finish here at home, but I'm off to the coffee shop because I want to continue with the progress that I'm making this week and add another line of word count to my Moleskine. Have a great day wherever you are and whatever you're doing, and happy writing.